Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. I hope you're all doing really well today. It's been a while since I've posted, and main reason for that is I didn't have a lot to say. I mean, I've been very busy. There's lots of other things as well, but I've been out there for a while, and I've laid out what I think the predictive program was showing, and that 2025-26 was where we were headed to see when things would take off. Some point after that. March 14th, the pi eclipse date, which came up so often in predictive programming. And in my most recent post, well, that's taking a second to load, but in my most recent post here, in the community section, I guess, I talked about, that we're reaching this pi day, 314, 2025, and we saw it on Skullduggery and iPetGoat 2. There's the pi, the letter pi. We saw it here. No dice. Dice has that those three sides adjacent, and so here we see it, and that legend, Shang, whatever his name is, in the Legend of the Ten Rings. And importantly, I think we also see it in Leave the World Behind, where Leave the World Behind has the Trump family at the White House, the white family representing the Trump family, to the White House, then leaving the White House, indicating an end of their term, and then returning to the White House, which is the second term after an interruption of one term. And, that conversation between the family representing the Obamas and the left says, why'd you let Trump back in? And he said, it's the right thing to do. And she said, and that right there, that's what's going to screw us over in the end. And then after that scene, we get the lunar eclipse from the moon's perspective, which is a representation of a total lunar eclipse. And that was what happened. So immediately after Trump came back. So the Trump family returns. Then we get the lunar eclipse. And it's after that things go wild and go crazy. And so this was the predictive programming. And frankly, if nothing was going to happen, I didn't have much to say in the short term because, I've said my piece, and that's what it looked like the predictive program was showing. Now, things are, getting worse. And I'm going to show you what may be going on based on the predictive programming and Leave the World Behind again. I want to dig in a little more here. The video I have up here is the live Tel Aviv skyline after Iran's retaliatory missile attack on Israel. Right now it's June 15th, some at night, and so that's what we're looking at. Maybe, I hope nothing's happening at this time. I hope both sides just stop. I know they're not going to, but I never am happy to see people being attacked and killed. That's terrible. War is just a horrible thing, period. War's awful. What Israel did to initiate this seems to me unnecessary, of course. But I think this is all part of a larger plan, and even it was inevitable. At some point, they were going to do this sort of thing. It was pretty clear they've had this planned for a long time. Now, let's go to Leave the World Behind and the predictive programming there. What slide am I on? I'm on slide 222. So, in this film, we have the White House that they go to on a trip, and on a vacation basically. They go to this White House, and the first night they're there, and I should add, when they enter the White House, the time was 11:16, represent the first time. Okay, that was the Donnie Darko clock, but represents the first time, November 2016, when the election happened and Donald Trump won. Okay, and they go to that White House, and yeah, here it is. Okay, that's when they enter. Then, the first night, Captain George Scott, the black family, representing the Obamas, saying, "This is our house." This is our house. And the Trumps were basically renters in the house. They're guests. And they're there and they leave and they're going to come back again. Now, I'm not going to go through all the predictive programming or all the explanation of everything that we've talked about several times before. There's a whole series on this that I've gone into. But it's imitating Donnie Darko. We have the primary universe. Okay. Then you time travel out of the primary universe into a tangent universe, which is unstable. And the unstable tangent universe is one that the goal in it is to sort of save the world. Because at the end of the unstable tangent universe, it's going to collapse back into the primary universe. And when it does that, the whole world can come to an end. And you have to do it in just the right way. Well, in Donnie Darko, Donnie does his job well and, saves the day by giving himself up. He has to die, right? In the real world and in Leave the World Behind, the primary universe, was exited, I suppose, in 2016. And now, to save that world, we had to come back to the point where it collapsed back on itself in November 2024, which was basically the second November 2011, second Trump election that he was in, where there's a chance for him as the non-incumbent to take the office of the presidency and win. He needs to lose and die or not continue with his candidacy in order to save the universe. That's the idea. And yet he doesn't. He doesn't. And the fact that he's allowed to come back into the White House is actually what's going to lead to the failure of the unstable tangent universe to collapse back into the primary universe without destroying the world. It's going to destroy the world. That's the point of the film. And the question then is, how does this happen? Now, I showed you on that, there's the, let me see here. Yeah, we'll go all the way back to where it was. Down here, 222. Okay, so it comes after the March 14th, 2025 total lunar eclipse that we saw this from the Post, right? Here, this scene. The idea is letting Trump back in is what's going to screw us over in the end. Then we get the total lunar eclipse representation. Okay, again, that's from the perspective of the moon. So it looks like a solar eclipse, but from the moon, a solar eclipse would actually be a lunar eclipse because from the Earth's perspective, you get a lunar eclipse. Anyways, what you have, though, is that's what's going to screw us over in the end. The Trump presidency, the second Trump presidency, letting him back in is going to bring down the United States, the Jenga game in the film as well, which collapses. Now, let me go ahead. Remember in Donnie Darko, we have the spirals. You have the spiral on the engine at the beginning of the film, and you have the spiral storm at the end. That's when you enter and exit the universes, I suppose, returning to the primary. Here we have this spiral. This is representing, I think, the second Trump presidency, what comes after, right? So we have in the shed, they're looking for Rose, Amanda and Ruth are going to have this conversation. I'll do it quickly. But what it shows is the uprisings that we're seeing now. Okay, we're seeing the anti-ICE demonstrations, the No King protests, and in some cases riots, and the responding violence. Okay, all that. What we have is she's going to come. The Trump family representative comes against the minority representative, and we're going to see the minority being treated as a deer being hunted. Watch, here we see how she's going to come at her. Walks, she's going to circle back, and the leaves make the antlers. Okay, she has now taken the posture of the deer. The deer in the film are important. We saw at the beginning of the film that the day right before she and her father showed up at the door that night, 2 deer showed up out in the yard. Okay, and that was sort of a hint that the 2 people who come that night are representing the deer. These are going to be the left, the minorities, the immigrants, the people who are targeted by, according to the narrative, the Trump administration. Okay? And they are being put in this position of being the hunted or the deer. Okay? I want to know what's going on, yada, yada, yada. Now, what happens, the deer are going to respond and eventually come back against the administration. Okay, so she's going to sit there, briefly take her talking to, and then she's going to finally respond. Stop yelling at me, and she exits from being a deer. She's no longer the hunted. Now, while this happens, outside of this shed, the deer come in large numbers, right? Let's see. Right, yeah, she hears the deer there. And then we're going to go, let me get back to the deer scene. Yeah. Okay, you see they're coming. And this is the uprising beginning. This is if you want to think of it, this is, I think, the anti-ICE protests and so on, the threat of an uprising. Okay? And they're unable to stop it. They're yelling at them, trying to get them to go away. They're doing everything they can to scare them off. At the same time that this is happening, we have a parallel set of scenes. Okay? And that's where we get the federal government and the state governments at odds, okay? If you go here, they represent presidents. That's the federal government, okay? That was the Trump administration. Here's the Obama administration, right, left, federal government being represented. Danny, he's going to wear a single star on his hat, the Dallas Cowboy hat, and representing like a Texas or a single state, okay? And for the sake of symbolism, it could be California, but it doesn't matter. The point is, we have a state and the federal government. And he says, we used to be friends, but that's the old way. You know, here. Well, they're talking about that at this point. Okay, they're speculating about what the violence is that caused the problems they're having, but they come to a head finally. Okay, at this, let me see here. Yeah, what I got isn't your business. The state is saying, what I do, what I have, is not your place. You stay out of it. And he says, Danny, come on now, it's me. We know each other. We're friends. Federal government says to the state, we're friends. Give us your stuff. And he says, that's the old way, George. You're not thinking clearly. So they're about to come to blows, if you want to think of it this way, right? They're getting ready. So they're going to end up pointing guns at each other. I'm getting out my gun. They're going to be, see? Here we get head-to-head. State versus federal government. Federal government versus the anti-ICE protests, uprising of those who are viewed as the targets of the Trump administration, immigrants and so on. All right. So now we're getting these simultaneously. But what's very, very interesting in Leave the World Behind is it just sort of stops. We don't really get to see what happens. Out of nowhere, okay, he's trying to call it off, and it works. This dispute, they settle it. They come to some sort of agreement. The other dispute between the federal government, I guess, and the protesters does not. The leadership doesn't do anything to stop it. They just scatter all of a sudden. They scatter. That's the end of it. And you say, what happened? Why'd they run? And there's an explanation. The reason they ran was this. She's looking off, and they see something while they're looking for Rose. What do they see? War. A bigger war. Some sort of major detonation happens in the city. Okay? And more than one. Looks like a couple in the scene. And it was the impact, almost certainly, that the deer felt. That put an end to their immediate protests, and they're coming up against the federal government because there's a major strike. And we learn that when Rose is down in the bunker, that there's nuclear fallout or radiation, so it seems like some sort of a nuclear strike, perhaps. Now, what can we take from this? If we look at what's going on, right, we have the uprising here in the U.S., but we also have simultaneously, just a few days after that, I say simultaneously, but both these events are ongoing. We have the uprisings, the protests, and all of that, the civil unrest beginning, the assassination of the Minnesota state representative and her husband, and all of that. That all happens, and just a few days later, Israel strikes Iran, and the Middle East conflict, which has the potential to become a global war, begins. The possibility is there that what the predictive program was showing is that these protests are the final precursor, the final thing that comes before the war takes off, which war will be the thing that puts sort of an end to all those protests and anything you would consider sort of a normal, healthy United States, right? And so what I think the predictive programming could be pointing to here is either one of two things. One of two things is happening here. When they scatter this detonation or these explosions here, these could be strikes from, allegedly from foreign enemies. The claim being that World War III has taken off, the U.S. has been hit, all of that. That could be it. Or it could be that the protesters are finally put down when the federal government strikes. Some sort of takes military action against them. One of the two, I suppose. But I was thinking that it could be the war. The war. So maybe what happens is this is the warning that we're about to enter World War III. The other possibility is that it's the federal government resorts to using its own military against the uprising, which is why they have to scatter. But either way, what we're getting close to the chaos here, I think. That's what it looks like. Will it happen tomorrow? I guess it could. Will it? Don't know how long it'll take. It can take some time. The Deagle reports have the U.S. population in 2025 at under 100 million people, so that's a whole lot of people not there. Let's hope that's not predictive programming. It's just somebody's bad guess. But if that's accurate, that would be some point before the end of the year. You'd have some major strikes in the U.S. that would do something like that. But let's hope not. I have a cold. I'm losing my voice, so I got to stop talking. But hope everybody's doing really well. I've missed everybody. I think there's a good chance that I'll have a lot more to say in the near future with all the things happening now. It seems like things are happening right on the timeline that we've looked at on the channel for quite a while with predictive programming. So, let's hope. Well, let's prepare ourselves. Prepare yourself spiritually. Prepare yourself mentally, psychologically. Get ready for what's coming. And at the same time, don't worry. We can't. Worrying is not going to help us at all. So, keep your eyes on Christ. Take care. Blessings.